I am a 32-year-old woman. My husband, Liam, who is 34, divorced me by email. He was supposed to be in Germany for a business trip, a final push to close a deal that would supposedly set us up for life. I remember making him coffee that morning, packing his favorite snacks for the flight, and kissing him goodbye at the door. He had told me he loved me. He had promised to call as soon as he landed. I spent the day feeling proud of him, proud of us, and what we had built together over 8 years of marriage. We started with nothing. I worked 2 jobs to support us while he poured every waking hour into his software startup. Our first apartment was tiny, with a leaky faucet and neighbors who fought all night. But we were a team. Every success was our success. Every failure was our failure. The email arrived at 10:37 at night. The subject line was just my name. I thought it was him letting me know he had checked into his hotel. My heart did a little flip, the way it always did. I opened it, a smile already on my face, ready to read about his flight. But the words on the screen were cold and sterile. They did not feel like they came from the man I knew. The message was short, only 4 sentences long. Chloe, I am sorry to do this in an email, but I feel it is the only way. I am filing for divorce. Our lawyers will handle the details from here. Please do not try to contact me. I read it once, then again, and a third time. The words did not make sense. It felt like a prank, a cruel joke. I looked at the sender's address. It was his. My hands started to shake. A cold dread washed over me, so intense it made me feel nauseous. Divorce. The word echoed in the silent apartment.
He was divorcing me.
After 8 years, after all the sacrifices, all the shared dreams, he was ending it with a 4-sentence email while he was thousands of miles away. The cowardice of it was breathtaking. He couldn't even face me. He couldn't give me the respect of a conversation.
He just deleted me.
I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the screen. The cursor blinked at the end of his last sentence, a tiny, rhythmic pulse in the deafening silence of my life falling apart. I thought about his mother, Eleanor. She had never truly warmed to me. To her, I was never quite good enough for her brilliant son. She would make small, cutting remarks, always with a smile, so I could never be sure if it was an insult or just her way. It's wonderful that you're so supportive of Liam's career, dear, she'd say. It's a full-time job in itself, isn't it? The implication was always clear. My own career as a graphic designer was a quaint little hobby, while his work was what truly mattered. Liam would always defend her. That's just how she is, Chloe. She doesn't mean anything by it now. I wondered if he had believed her. I wondered if he saw me as just a supporting character in his grand story. The initial shock started to wear off, replaced by a deep, throbbing pain in my chest. I felt a wave of humiliation wash over me. He had left me in the most impersonal, disrespectful way possible. He had reduced our entire life together to a brief, cold business transaction. He didn't want to talk. He wanted the lawyers to handle it. It meant he had already spoken to one. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was planned. While I was packing his suitcase with his favorite shirts, he was planning how to end our marriage. The thought made me sick. I closed the laptop, unable to look at his words anymore. The apartment felt huge and empty. Every object in it was a memory. The couch where we watched movies, the kitchen table where we ate dinner every night, the photos on the wall of our wedding, of our vacations, of our life. It was all a lie. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. He was out there somewhere, starting his new life, while I was trapped here in the museum of our dead one. The anger started to build then, a slow burn that started in my stomach and spread through my veins. He was not going to get away with this. He was not going to erase me so easily. I had helped build his empire. I was a partner, not an employee to be dismissed with a sterile email. I took a deep breath. The tears would come later. Right now, I needed to think. My mind, which had been a fog of pain and confusion, started to clear. I needed a plan. I needed to protect myself. Because it was suddenly, terrifyingly clear that the man I had loved and trusted was a stranger, and that stranger was now my enemy. My fingers trembled as I reopened the laptop. I had to read the email again, to make sure I hadn't imagined it. The words were still there, stark and unforgiving. But this time, I noticed something I had missed in my initial shock. At the very top of the email, in the header, there was a CC address. It was faint, almost hidden. The address wasn't familiar. It wasn't his lawyer, or his assistant, or anyone I knew. It was just a name, Anya Petrova, followed by his company's domain name.
Anya Petrova.
I had never heard him mention that name before. Curiosity, sharp and insistent, cut through the grief.
Who was she?
Why was she copied on the email that ended my marriage? My fingers flew across the keyboard. I typed her name into the company's internal directory, which I still had access to. Her profile popped up immediately. She was a senior project manager at their new office in Berlin, the office he was supposedly visiting to close a deal. A picture of her smiled back at me from the screen. She was beautiful, with dark hair and a bright, confident smile. The business trip suddenly felt very different. It wasn't about a deal. It was about her. This was the first crack in his story. The neat, simple narrative of irreconcilable differences was a lie. He had not just left me. He had left me for someone else. The betrayal was so much deeper than I had imagined. He had been leading a double life. For how long? My mind raced, replaying our last few months together. The late nights at the office, he said, were due to deadlines. The hushed phone calls he would take in the other room, claiming they were with international clients. The way he had grown distant, his affection feeling more like a habit than a genuine emotion. I had told myself it was just stress. I had tried to be more supportive, more understanding. I had blamed myself, thinking I wasn't doing enough. But it wasn't me. It was her. I felt a fresh wave of nausea. He had been with her, thinking about her, planning a future with her, all while living with me, sleeping in our bed, telling me he loved me. The deceit was staggering. I closed my eyes, trying to breathe. The pain was sharp, a physical ache in my chest. But underneath the pain, that flicker of anger I had felt earlier began to grow into a flame. He had not only discarded me, he had made a fool of me. He had spun a web of lies, and he expected me to just quietly disappear while he started over with his new life, funded by the assets we had built together. That was the thought that brought me back to reality. Our assets. Everything was joint. The house we lived in, the savings account that held a substantial amount of money, the investment portfolio that had grown significantly thanks to his company's success. My name was on every single one of them. A cold, clear thought cut through the emotional turmoil. He had sent that email from a plane or from a hotel room far away because he thought he was safe.
He thought he had time.
He thought I would be a crying, helpless mess, waiting for his lawyer to dictate the terms of my surrender. He had underestimated me. He had mistaken my kindness for weakness for the last time. I picked up my phone. My hand was steady now. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Sarah. My best friend since college. She was a rock, practical and fiercely loyal. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and sleepy. Chloe? Is everything okay? It's late. My own voice came out, surprisingly calm. Sarah, I said, I need you to come over. Liam just divorced me. There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end of the line.
Then, what?
What are you talking about? He's in Germany. He did it by email, I said, the words tasting like poison. And I think he's been having an affair. I'm on my way, she said, and the line went dead. While I waited for Sarah, I started digging. I logged into our joint credit card account. My heart pounded in my chest as the page loaded. I started with the most recent statement. There were the flights to Berlin, just as he had said. But then I saw other charges. A dinner for two at a Michelin-star restaurant in Paris 2 months ago. On a weekend, he was supposed to be at a tech conference in Austin. A charge from a luxury lingerie boutique in London a month before that, when he was supposedly visiting their UK office alone. And then I saw it. Recurring charge for a high-end service apartment in Berlin, dating back 6 months. He hadn't just been visiting. He had a place there. A whole other life I knew nothing about. Each transaction was a small betrayal, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. The lies were so extensive, so brazen. He had built an entire separate existence right under my nose. I felt like a fool for not seeing it, for trusting him so completely. The man I married was a fiction. The man I was married to now was a stranger, a liar and a cheat. Sarah arrived 20 minutes later, her face a mask of concern. She took one look at me and wrapped me in a hug. I finally let the tears come then, silent, hot tears of grief and rage. She held me until the shaking stopped, letting me cry it all out. Then she pulled back, her expression hardening. "Okay," she said, her voice firm. "No more tears. Now we fight back. Show me everything." We spent the next 2 hours huddled over my laptop, piecing together the timeline of his deceit. Sarah, who worked in forensic accounting, was methodical. She created a spreadsheet, documenting every suspicious charge, every discrepancy in his travel schedule. The evidence was overwhelming. It was a clear, premeditated plan to leave me for another woman. "He's an idiot," Sarah said, scrolling through the hotel charges. "He used our joint card for all of this. He didn't even bother to cover his tracks. He thinks you're too stupid or too heartbroken to look." Her words stung, but she was right. He had counted on me falling apart. He had expected me to be passive. "What do I do, Sarah?" I asked, my voice small. "The first thing you do tomorrow morning is call a lawyer," she said, her eyes fixed on the screen. "A shark. The best one you can find. And the second thing you do is protect your assets. Everything is in joint names, right?" I nodded. "Everything. The house, the savings, the investments. My inheritance from my grandmother went into the down payment on our first house, the one we sold to fund his company." A grim smile touched Sarah's lips. "Good," she said. "That gives you leverage. He might have sent the email, but you have the power right now. He's in another country, probably sipping champagne with his mistress, thinking he's in control. He has no idea what's coming." Her confidence was contagious. The feeling of helplessness began to recede, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. She was right. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of a war. And it was a war I was not going to lose. We stayed up all night, planning, strategizing. By the time the sun came up, I had a list. At the top of the list was one name, Mark Fletcher. He was a divorce lawyer with a reputation for being ruthless, brilliant, and incredibly effective. He was exactly what I needed. The next morning, I felt a strange sense of calm. The shock and grief were still there, lurking beneath the surface, but they were overshadowed by a singular focus. I called Mark Fletcher's office at 9 o'clock sharp. His assistant told me he was booked for weeks, but I was insistent. "It's an emergency," I said, my voice steady. "My husband has just left the country after informing me by email that he's filing for divorce, and I have evidence he's planning to hide significant joint assets." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, "Can you hold for a moment, please?" A minute later, Mark Fletcher himself was on the phone. His voice was deep and reassuring. "Tell me everything," he said. I spent the next hour laying out the whole sordid story. The email, the CC mistress, the credit card statements, the service apartment in Berlin. I told him about my inheritance and how it had been the seed money for Liam's success. He listened patiently, interrupting only to ask sharp, clarifying questions. When I was finished, there was a long silence. "He's arrogant," Mark said finally. "And arrogance makes people sloppy. Using the joint credit card for his affair is a gift. But the email is the real prize. Sending it while he's out of the country gives us a window of opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" I asked. "The kind that allows us to secure your future," he replied. "As of right now, every penny in those joint accounts is just as much yours as it is his. You have the legal right to access it, to move it, to do whatever you want with it. The moment his lawyer files the divorce petition and serves you, the court will likely issue a temporary restraining order freezing all marital assets. But until that happens, we have a free hand." A plan began to form in my mind, audacious and terrifying. "You mean I can take the money?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I mean you can move the money into a new account in your name only, he corrected gently. For safekeeping. You're not stealing it. You're protecting your share of the marital estate from a man who has already demonstrated his intention to deceive you. We have the evidence to prove he's been dissipating marital assets on his mistress. A judge will understand. When would we have to do it? I asked, my heart starting to race. Now, Mark said. As soon as possible. He's in Germany. It will take his lawyer a day or two, maybe more, to get the paperwork filed in the correct jurisdiction and have you served. We need to act before that happens. Do you know his travel schedule? I know when he's flying back, I said, remembering the flight confirmation I had seen in his email. He lands in 3 days. Perfect, Mark said. He'll be in the air for 12 hours, completely unreachable. That will be our moment. Here is what you need to do. He laid out the plan, step by step. It was simple, elegant, and brutal. It involved going to every bank where we held an account, armed with my identification and our marriage certificate, and systematically emptying every single one. The savings, the checking, the brokerage account. Everything. It would all be transferred into new accounts that I would open in my name alone. It will be a long day, Mark warned. The banks will ask questions. You need to be calm and firm. You are not doing anything illegal. You are exercising your rights as a co-owner of the accounts. After I hung up with Mark, I sat in silence for a long time. The scale of what I was about to do was immense.
It was a point of no return.
But what other choice did I have? Liam had declared war with his cowardly email. He had left me no room for negotiation, no chance for a peaceful resolution. He wanted a clean break, a fresh start. I was going to give it to him. He was going to start fresh, all right. Completely fresh. With nothing. The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. I gathered all the necessary documents. Our marriage certificate, my passport, bank statements, everything Mark had told me to bring. I barely ate. I barely slept. I operated on pure adrenaline and a cold, burning rage. Sarah was my shadow, my cheerleader, and my strategist. She helped me set up the new bank accounts online, so they would be ready to receive the funds. She rehearsed what I would say to the bank managers. She made sure I was ready. During this time, I received a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It was a lawyer from a prestigious firm, introducing himself as Liam's legal counsel. His message was smooth and professional. He said he wanted to discuss an amicable and equitable separation. Amicable. The word was so insulting it was almost funny. I forwarded the voicemail to Mark, who simply replied, "Ignore him. He's fishing. Stick to the plan." Then, the evening before Liam's flight, I got a call from his mother, Eleanor. My stomach twisted into a knot. I knew I had to answer. Her voice was syrupy sweet, dripping with false concern. "Chloe, dear, I was just calling to see how you are. I tried calling Liam in Berlin, but he must be so busy with this big deal. Have you heard from him?" The lie was so blatant, so effortless. She was testing me, trying to see what I knew. I decided to play along, for now. "No, I haven't heard much, Eleanor," I said, keeping my voice light. "He's been swamped, I'm sure. This deal is very important." "Oh, yes, absolutely vital," she said a little too quickly. "He's working so hard for his future. For both of your futures, of course." The "of course" was an afterthought, a clumsy attempt to maintain the facade. That was all the confirmation I needed. She knew. She knew about the affair, about the divorce. She was a co-conspirator in her son's betrayal. She was probably the one who encouraged it, telling him he deserved a woman who was his equal. A switch flipped inside me. Any lingering doubt, any shred of sentimentality I might have had, vanished. They had colluded against me. They saw me as an obstacle to be removed. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the depth of their deception. This wasn't just about an affair. This was a calculated plot to strip me of everything I had helped build. "Well, I'm sure he'll be successful," I said, my voice now as cold as ice. "Liam always gets what he wants." Yes, dear, she said, missing the chill in my tone. He certainly does. After I hung up, I sat in the dark, the rage a living thing inside me. Eleanor's call had been a gift. It had erased any guilt I might have felt about what I was about to do. This was no longer just about protecting myself. This was about justice. It was about taking back my life, my dignity, and my future from the people who had tried to steal them from me. That night, I found something else. I couldn't sleep, so I started going through our shared cloud storage, a digital attic filled with years of photos and documents. I clicked through old vacation pictures, feeling a pang of sadness for the happy couple in the photos who had no idea what was coming. Then I stumbled upon a folder I had never seen before. It was cryptically named Project Phoenix. My curiosity piqued. I clicked on it. It was password protected. I tried all our usual passwords, but none of them worked. Then, on a whim, I tried Anya Petrova one. The folder opened. My blood ran cold. It was all there. Drafts of the divorce email, each one colder and more clinical than the last. Spreadsheets detailing our joint assets, with columns calculating how much he could legally get away with offering me as a settlement. There were notes from his lawyer, outlining a strategy to paint me as emotionally unstable and financially irresponsible to justify a lower payout. But the worst part was a subfolder named Future. Inside was a draft of a prenuptial agreement for him and Anya. It was dated 3 months ago, and a file containing architectural plans for a new house they were planning to build, a house on a plot of land he had apparently already purchased in Berlin, using money from our joint investment account. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The sheer premeditation of it all was suffocating. He hadn't just been cheating on me. He had been actively plotting my financial ruin while planning his idyllic future with another woman. He was using our money, the money I had helped him earn, the money from my grandmother's inheritance, to build a new life on the ashes of ours. He wasn't just divorcing me. He was trying to erase me. I meticulously downloaded every single file onto a secure hard drive. This was the smoking gun. This was more than just evidence of an affair. It was proof of a deliberate, malicious attempt to defraud me. I sent a copy to Mark with a simple message. Look at this. He named the folder Project Phoenix. Mark's reply came within minutes. He's not just arrogant, he's a psychopath. This changes everything. Don't worry, Chloe. The Phoenix is about to get its wings plucked. The morning of Liam's flight, I woke up with a strange sense of peace. The decision was made. The path was clear. There was no more turmoil, no more doubt. There was only the plan. I dressed in a simple, professional outfit. I wanted to look calm and in control. Sarah met me at my apartment, holding 2 cups of coffee. She didn't say much, just gave my hand a squeeze.
"You've got this," she said.
We tracked his flight online. The status changed to departed. He was in the air. He was unreachable. It was time. Our first stop was the main branch of our primary bank. It was a large, imposing building with marble floors and hushed tones. I felt a tremor of fear as I walked in, but I pushed it down. I walked up to the private banking desk, the one we had been assigned when our assets had reached a certain level. The bank manager, a man named Mr. Henderson whom we had met several times, greeted me with a polite smile. "Mistress Thompson, good morning. How can I help you? Is Mr. Thompson with you today?" "No, Mr. Henderson, he's not," I said, my voice even. "I'm here to make some changes to our accounts." I sat down at his desk and laid out my documents. "I need to withdraw the entire balance from our joint checking account, our joint savings account, and our joint money market account," I said calmly. "And I would like to transfer the funds into a new account, in my name only." His smile faltered. He looked at me, then at the documents, a confused expression on his face. "The entire balance? That's a very substantial amount, Mistress Thompson. Is everything all right?" "Everything is fine," I said, my voice firm. "I am a co-owner of these accounts, and I am exercising my right to withdraw the funds." He looked uncomfortable. "Well, yes, of course you are. But a transaction of this size. Typically, we would require both signatures, or at least a verbal confirmation from your husband. The account agreement does not require both signatures for a withdrawal," I stated, quoting the exact clause Mark had told me to memorize. It is a joint account with rights of survivorship, which also means either party can withdraw any or all of the funds at any time. You can check the terms and conditions. He shifted in his chair, clearly flustered. I understand, but it's a matter of procedure, of protecting our clients. I met his gaze and did not blink. Mr. Henderson, I said, my voice dropping slightly, you are legally obligated to honor my request. If you refuse, I will have my lawyer contact your bank's legal department immediately. I can assure you that will be far more inconvenient for everyone than simply following the terms of your own account agreement. The veiled threat hung in the air between us. He swallowed hard. He knew I was right. He typed furiously on his computer, his face grim. He made a phone call, speaking in low, hushed tones. After what felt like an eternity, he hung up and looked at me. Very well, Mistress Thompson, he said, his voice stiff. We will process the transfer. It will take some time. I sat there in silence as he worked, the only sound the clicking of his keyboard and the quiet hum of the bank. I did not look at my phone. I did not fidget. I projected an aura of absolute certainty. An hour later, he pushed a series of papers across the desk for me to sign. I signed them with a steady hand. The transfers are complete, he said, avoiding my eyes. The funds are now in your new account. I stood up and offered him a polite smile. Thank you for your assistance, Mr. Henderson. As I walked out of the bank, my legs felt like jelly. But I had done it. The first and largest piece of the plan was complete. Sarah was waiting for me outside, pacing nervously. When she saw me, her face broke into a wide grin. How did it go? It's done, I said, a slow smile spreading across my own face. He fought me, but he did it. She let out a whoop of joy. Yes. 1 down, 2 to go. The next stop was the brokerage firm. This was more complicated. It involved liquidating our entire portfolio of stocks and bonds. The financial advisor, a slick man in an expensive suit, was even more resistant than the bank manager. He talked about market volatility, about tax implications, about the long-term financial strategy he and Liam had supposedly crafted together. I let him talk, nodding politely. When he was finished, I looked him in the eye. I understand all of that, I said. But my personal circumstances have changed, and my financial strategy has changed with them. I want to liquidate everything. Today. But Liam, he started to say. Liam is on a flight and cannot be reached. I cut him off. And as the co-owner of this account, I am instructing you to sell all our holdings and transfer the resulting cash balance to this account. I slid a piece of paper with my new account details across his desk. He protested. He argued. He said he had a fiduciary duty to both of us. Your fiduciary duty is to follow the legal instructions of your client, I said, my voice like steel. And I am your client. If you are unwilling to execute my instructions, I will find a broker who is. And I will also be filing a formal complaint with the Financial Regulatory Authority regarding your refusal to carry out a lawful order. That got his attention. The threat of a regulatory complaint was something he could not ignore. He paled slightly and returned to his computer. The process took over 2 hours. The market was open, and he had to sell off the assets in blocks. But in the end, it was done. Another massive sum of money, our entire nest egg for retirement, was now safe in my possession. The final step was the house. I couldn't empty a house, but I could prevent him from selling it out from under me. I met Mark at the county courthouse. He had already prepared the paperwork. He filed a lease pendens, a legal notice that the property was subject to a pending lawsuit. It meant that Liam could not sell or refinance the house until our divorce was finalized. It effectively froze our biggest physical asset. As we walked out of the courthouse, the sun was beginning to set. I was exhausted, emotionally and physically drained. But I was also filled with a sense of profound, exhilarating power. In the space of a single day, while my husband was flying across the ocean, blissfully unaware, I had taken back control of my life. I had seized the entire financial empire we had built together. So what now? I asked Mark. Now we wait, he said with a small smile. His plane lands at 7:55 p.m. I imagine you'll be hearing from him shortly after that. That evening, I sat in my living room with Sarah. We ordered pizza and opened a bottle of wine. We didn't talk much. We just sat together, tracking Liam's flight on my laptop. We watched the little icon of the airplane slowly make its way across the Atlantic. Each mile it traveled was a mile further away from the man he used to be, and a mile closer to the man he was about to become, a man with no money, no power, and no idea what had just hit him. At 7:55, the flight status changed to landed. My heart began to hammer against my ribs. This was it, the moment of truth. I imagined him walking through the airport, probably holding hands with Anya, feeling smug and successful. He would pull out his phone to call an Uber or perhaps a limo to whisk them away to their new life. He would open the app, his card would be declined. He would try another one. Declined. Confused, he would try to log into his bank account.
And he would see it. 0.
A perfect, beautiful, empty 0. The minutes ticked by. 10 minutes.
20.
30. The suspense was unbearable. Then, at 8:32, my phone buzzed, lighting up with his name. I looked at Sarah. She gave me a nod. I took a deep, steadying breath and answered, putting the phone on speaker. His voice was a frantic, high-pitched squawk, nothing like his usual calm, authoritative tone. Chloe? What the hell is going on? What did you do? I took a sip of my wine, savoring the moment. I let the silence stretch out, letting him stew in his panic. Chloe, are you there? He yelled, his voice cracking. Answer me. All my cards are being declined. I can't even get a taxi. I logged into the bank account. It's empty. The savings account is empty. What did you do with our money? The use of the word "our" was almost comical. I finally decided to speak, my voice cool and composed. I'm not sure what you mean, Liam. Which money are you referring to? Our money. The money in our accounts, he shrieked. I could hear the sounds of the airport in the background, the announcements, the chatter of other travelers. I could also hear a woman's voice, Anya's presumably, asking in a worried tone, Liam, what's wrong? What's happening? Oh, that money, I said, as if I had just remembered. I decided to move it for safekeeping. Given the circumstances. There was a sputtering sound on the other end of the line. What circumstances? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the email you sent me, Liam, I said, my voice hardening. The one you sent while you were on your romantic getaway with Anya Petrova. The one where you ended our 8-year marriage in 4 sentences. Those circumstances. A dead silence. He was stunned. He had no idea I knew about her. He had thought he was being so clever, so discreet.
How?
How did you know about Anya? He stammered. You CC'd her on the email, you idiot, I said, the words dripping with contempt. And you paid for your entire affair using our joint credit card. The 6-month lease on the Berlin apartment was a particularly nice touch. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? He started to bluster, to deny it, but the words died in his throat. He was caught. I could almost feel his world collapsing around him through the phone. I heard Anya's voice again, louder this time, more insistent. Liam, what is she talking about? What apartment? Chloe, you can't do this, he pleaded, his voice changing from anger to desperation. This is illegal. You stole our money. No, Liam, I said, my voice calm and clear. I didn't steal anything. I protected my half of the marital assets from a man who was actively plotting to defraud me. I have the files from your Project Phoenix folder, by the way. The spreadsheets, the notes from your lawyer, the prenup for you and Anya. It's all very thorough. I'm sure my lawyer will find it fascinating. The sound that came out of his mouth was something between a gasp and a sob. He was utterly, completely defeated. He had lost, and he knew it. My lawyer will be in touch with your lawyer to discuss the terms of our divorce, I said, using his own words against him. Until then, I suggest you find another way to pay for your taxi. Oh, and by the way, I've put a lien on the house so you won't be able to sell that either. Have a wonderful new life. I hung up the phone. The silence in the living room was absolute. Sarah was staring at me, her eyes wide, a huge smile spreading across her face. Then she burst out laughing, a deep, joyful sound that filled the entire apartment. I started laughing too, a release of all the tension, the pain, the anger of the last few days. We laughed until tears streamed down our faces. The aftermath was swift and brutal, just as Mark had predicted. Liam was stranded at the airport, humiliated and penniless. He had to make a groveling call to his mother, Eleanor, to wire him money for a hotel room. Anya, faced with the reality of a man who is not the wealthy, powerful executive she thought he was, but a broke, disgraced liar entangled in a messy divorce, left him within a week. She was apparently not interested in a Project Phoenix that had no funding. Liam's lawyer tried to fight back, of course. He filed emergency motions, accused me of theft and fraud. But Mark was always one step ahead. At the first hearing, he presented the judge with the contents of the Project Phoenix folder. The judge took one look at the spreadsheets detailing Liam's plan to hide assets and his lawyer's notes on how to portray me as unstable, and he was furious. He not only denied all of Liam's motions but also ordered Liam to pay for all of my legal fees. The divorce was finalized in record time. With the evidence I had, Liam had no leverage. He had no choice but to accept the settlement Mark proposed. We split the assets I had secured 50-50. But his half was significantly diminished after paying his own exorbitant legal bills and mine. He was forced to sell his shares in his company at a loss to cover his debts. The man who had tried to leave me with nothing ended up with a fraction of the wealth he had schemed to keep for himself. His family was torn apart. His mother, Eleanor, continued to defend him, blaming me for everything. But his brother, David, called me a few weeks after the airport incident. I expected him to yell at me, to call me names. Instead, his voice was quiet and full of shame. "Chloe, I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he said, "for what Liam did. I had no idea. He told us you two were just growing apart. He never mentioned any of the other stuff." I believed him. David had always been the decent one. I told him the whole story, calmly and factually. When I was done, he was silent for a long moment. "He's a fool," he said finally. "He threw away the best thing that ever happened to him. I hope you'll be okay." "I'll be more than okay, David," I said, and for the first time, I knew it was true. I sold the house, the one filled with so many ghosts and lies. I used my share of the settlement to buy a smaller, brighter apartment in a part of the city I had always loved. And I used the rest of the money that came from my grandmother's legacy and my own hard work, to start my own graphic design firm. It was something I had always dreamed of doing, but Liam had always subtly discouraged it, telling me it was too risky, that I was better off in my stable, less demanding job. He had wanted me to stay small so he could be the big one. My business thrived. I was good at what I did, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of purpose that was entirely my own. I was no longer a supporting character in someone else's story. I was the author of my own. About a year later, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. It was from Liam. It was long and rambling, full of self-pity and pathetic excuses. He said he had made a terrible mistake, that he had been a fool, that he missed me. He claimed Anya had manipulated him, that the pressure of his company had made him crazy. He asked if we could meet for coffee, if we could just talk. I read the email once, and I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no pity, not even a flicker of the love I had once felt for him. He was a stranger to me now, a ghost from a past life. The man I had loved had never really existed. He was a character Liam had played, and played well, for a very long time. I thought about all the things I could say to him. I could have listed all his lies, all his betrayals. I could have told him how much he had hurt me, but what was the point? He would never truly understand. People like Liam never do. They only understand consequences. So I typed a single word in reply.
No.
Then I blocked his email address and deleted the message. I picked up my keys, walked out of my new office, and stepped into the sunshine of my new life. He had tried to end my world with a click of a button. He had tried to reduce 8 years of love and partnership to a cold, 4-sentence email. But in the end, all he had done was set me free. The phoenix had risen from the ashes, all right. But it was me.